Of course, last night, all eyes in terms of the Old Firm were on Rangers in action last night. Celtic had won the night before. Celtic absolutely cruising towards the SPL title. But Rangers, of course, have had a reshuffle in terms of the management at the football club. The managerial situation there has hit the headlines this week. Philippe Clement sacked on Sunday, and as we reported first on Monday morning, in came Barry Ferguson, has taken the job on an interim basis until the end of the season. And then it caught my eye last night, Martin, while you're in Nottingham. I thought, I wonder what Martin will make of this scoreline. Rangers were 2-0 down at Rugby Park, Kilmarnock, came back, turned it round, won it by 4-2. Martin, like myself, knows Barry Ferguson, I'm sure. Barry reflected on what was literally a game of two halves.
I spoke about character, about a desire, and that's one thing that they certainly showed me, and I've got to give them praise for that. Look, there's a lot of things to work on, but when you come to a place like Kilmarnock, it's never easy, it's tough. They've got a top manager, an experienced manager who I've got a lot of time for, but they're also a real physical outfit with some really good players. So for us to come back from 2-0 down, and what's obviously been aimed at this group of players now for a number of months, I'm delighted for them. But listen, it's only one game now. The journey starts, the short journey it's going to be. We go back, we refocus, and it needs to be the same sort of performance, level of performance that we certainly showed in the second half.
I mean, Martin, you've been there and you've done it, and did it with distinction at Celtic across the city. What has Barry got himself into now in terms, and he's taken the job, of course, absolutely willingly. Why wouldn't he? He's a legend as a player. What kind of job does he have in front of him from this point onwards now? Was Celtic so dominant in the league domestically, but Rangers still with European football to look forward to, ironically with a last 16 Europa League tie against Mourinho's Fenerbahce?
Yeah. Well, I have no idea what Barry Ferguson would be like as a manager. No idea at all. What I do know is that he was when I went to Celtic, first of all, he was a young lad, very, very young. He was the captain of Rangers. And he was captaining players like Amoruso, De Boer, Van Bronckhorst, Klaas. The list is endless of big senior players. And he is leading that team. And they were a terrific side, Rangers, terrific side. And yet he was the captain of the team. He was a driving force. He was to Rangers what I felt that Neil Lennon was to us at Celtic. Carrying the football club forward in that aspect. So as a player, I've got the utmost regard for him, and I don't know what he's like as a manager. He's got a result there to begin with. He's in as an interim, but Rangers, the Rangers team, the players, they are not good. They are generally not good. They've done brilliantly to get as far as they have in Europe. Domestically, you couldn't trust them at all to win football matches. They beat Celtic. Beat Celtic a few weeks ago. It's the best they've played all season, and yet they can go away from home and not get a result. They lose to Queen's Park. I think it's the first time in their history that they lost against the side of a lower division at Ibrox. That's incredible. That's like the Berwick Rangers result of the 60s or whenever it was. And then when Celtic have lost against Hibs, you think to yourself, let's go and try and close the gap. We're at home at Ibrox. We've got the advantage of Celtic being beaten by Hibs, and you can't win the game and you lose the match. Was it to St Mirren or something like this here? Yeah. So it's no surprise that he's in. What he can do now, I think it's a terrific time for him, because the expectation is actually quite low at this minute, and he with his if he brings anything at all of his playing personality to the managership, then good luck to him.
I think Martin said it. I mean, he's such a favourite anyway. That counts for nothing now, though, Simon, because all they want to see is a winning team. If he was to get one over Mourinho and Fenerbahce and carry on and go seriously deep in this Europa League, do people like Parag Marat of the 49ers, who are set to take over the football club, think, might just stick with him?
I don't know. I mean, there's nothing in his managerial record that tells you that he's capable of managing Rangers to a position where they can overtake the only thing that's important, which is Celtic. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't reinvigorate himself, but he's at a stage where he's, 45, 46 years of age. If he was going to be a manager of any repute, he probably would have been by now.
Yeah.
He's had a series of opportunities. None of them have worked out. He's been in the media for the last 2 or 3 years without anyone banging his door down. It's a populist decision to put him in because clearly they think that the fans need to be reinvigorated by something or another.
Sure.
Ferguson has probably little to lose because irrespective of his legendary status at Rangers and the people's affection for him, if it goes Pete Tong, people are going to turn around and suggest that it wasn't his fault anyway because he was inheriting a motley group put together by somebody that hadn't done a good job previously. If it goes well, it could create a false economy. It could create the opportunity for an unavoidable mistake, which is the same thing I believe that happened with Man United when they overcame PSG and they decided to put Ole Gunnar Solskjær into their dressing room and put him in control of the football club for 2 or 3 years. I don't know whether Ferguson is going to be effective for Rangers. The team isn't effective. They haven't been effective in various times. I think some of the decisions they've made at that football club are strange. I look at Michael Beale and think, OK, yeah, he was doing all right at Queen's Park Rangers for 5 minutes, but what does that lend itself to? Oh, because he was assistant manager to Steven Gerrard when you had a modicum of success a few years ago. Is that your thinking? And Ferguson seems to be thinking just to hold court for a minute, regain some popularity amongst the fans, regain some sort of feeling towards the club, and maybe have a look in the summer. If Ferguson punches well in this period of time, I don't think it tells you much. I don't think it really tells you that he's going to be in the longer game. It's not now that Rangers need resolution. It's the longer game, which is, are we going to be able to bridge that gap between us and the only other meaningful conversation, which is Celtic?
Well, we'll see if the same Celtic can do an Old Firm double because they are, it's the same St Mirren can do an Old Firm double. They're up against Celtic this weekend and Rangers are home to Motherwell. And Motherwell are relatively decent, as I understand it, and may present quite a challenge to Ferguson and Rangers at Ibrox, Martin. It's an interesting spell.
Yeah, well, I think at this minute, the way Rangers perform domestically, I think that every club they play against would be a challenge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is something that would have been unheard of years ago.
Sure. Barry Ferguson got a win anyway in Game 1 at Kilmarnock. It's 11:30.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.